So at this time, this is an opportunity for us to cultivate metta, the quality of loving kindness. This quality of loving kindness is one of the four divine abidings of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. This is a meditation object that can be of great benefit and assistance to us in our practice of mental cultivation. It can help us to improve our minds. So this practice of loving kindness, we practice sending loving kindness to ourselves and to all beings everywhere, and wish that may all beings and may ourselves, may we all be happy. And we cultivate this loving kindness to not wish harm to any being whatsoever. And along with the 5 precepts and the Dhamma of the Brahmaviharas, the divine abidings, these take very good care of our minds and hearts. So for one who cultivates loving kindness, such an individual who cultivates loving kindness sleeps well and has no bad dreams. Their face is bright and radiant, and they're not sad. They don't die from poison or weapons of various kinds. And when they do die, they can be reborn in the Brahma heaven realm. And they are loved by humans and loved by heavenly beings as well. This comes from cultivating loving kindness. So the mind with loving kindness does not think to harm others. And one can cultivate loving kindness to bring the mind to peace. And we can look at the example of the Lord Buddha, who built loving kindness to the level of an ultimate spiritual perfection and made this parami, the spiritual perfection, made it full in his heart. And the Buddha, as a bodhisattva, cultivated loving kindness in many lifetimes in this way. So for us, we cultivate loving kindness in our minds in the same way that one loves oneself, one gives love to others. And one cultivates compassion, practices compassion to help others overcome suffering to the best of one's ability, and develops one's mind to know gratitude and to know how to repay the goodness of others as well. And this meditation object of loving kindness takes very good care of our hearts for Dhamma practitioners. So one practices loving kindness and compassion and cultivates them in the mind at all times. And we can look at the example of the Lord Buddha, who he pacified the elephant Nalagiri using this quality of loving kindness. And this elephant Nalagiri was charging at him with great fierceness in a very scary or intense way. And the Buddha was able to win over this elephant and to pacify the situation with this quality of loving kindness. So we can call loving kindness a Dhamma weapon that's very important. And we can look at the example of a noble, enlightened disciple of the Lord Buddha at the time of the Buddha, named Queen Samavati. And Queen Samavati, she was proclaimed the foremost female lay disciple in the quality of loving kindness. And we can look at some stories from the life of Queen Samavati. For instance, her fellow queen, Queen Magandia, attempted to trick the king, King Udena, to whom they were both married, to trick him into thinking that Queen Samavati wanted to kill King Udena. And King Udena believed this trick and wrongly thought that Queen Samavati attempted to kill him. So in a fit of anger, he lifted a bow and arrow and shot the arrow at Queen Samavati in order to kill her for her perceived wrongdoing. And this arrow flew towards Queen Samavati, but then it turned into a flower and returned back to King Udena, and as a way of worshipping or paying homage to King Udena. And King Udena was shocked at this because he saw that this arrow turned into a flower and paid respect to him, but an arrow has no consciousness, has no soul, so how could it do this? So he concluded that this meant that Queen Samavati was not guilty of trying to kill him. So there, after this, King Udena apologized to Queen Samavati. And Queen Samavati, she at this point was already a stream enterer, one who had realized the first stage of enlightenment in the Buddha's dispensation. And she had a strong faith and reverence of the Buddha. And she had a servant named Lady Kajutara. And every time the servant went to buy flowers, Lady Kajutara would listen to the Dhamma given by the Lord Buddha. And Lady Kajutara had an excellent memory, so she was able to return to the palace and then repeat the Buddha's discourse word for word to the queen and to the other maidservants as well. And by listening to the Dhamma in this way, Queen Samavati was able to contemplate and realize stream entry, realize the first stage of enlightenment. And she took the Buddha as her refuge. And looking at the story of Queen Magandiya, why was she trying to frame Queen Samavati for murder? And Queen Magandiya started out as a very beautiful daughter of a Brahmin family, and her parents one day saw the Buddha walking on alms round by their house. And seeing the Buddha, they thought that the Buddha looked radiant and suitable to be a husband for their daughter. So they offered their daughter to be the wife of the Buddha. And the Buddha did not accept this offer and instead taught that all conditioned formations are not beautiful. They're something that are not attractive. And listening to this brief discourse, the mother and father of Queen Magandiya were able to realize the third stage of enlightenment, anagami, non-returner. However, for Queen Magandiya, she felt personally insulted by this series of events and took up a grudge against the Buddha and felt very vengeful towards the Buddha. And this is something that the Buddha had to have occur. So after the Buddha refused to take Queen Magandiya as a wife, then the mother and father gave their daughter Magandiya to King Udena. And Queen Magandiya, seeing that Queen Samavati was a faithful disciple of the Buddha, decided to try to act out her revenge on Queen Samavati and her retinue. So on this first occasion, she did not succeed in destroying Queen Samavati, but on a later occasion, when Queen Samavati and her 500 maidservants entered their palace, then Queen Magandiya had a fire lit to burn that very palace. And as the fire swept across the building and engulfed that palace, the Queen Samavati and her 500 maidservants saw clearly that death was coming to them. There was no escape from this situation that they found themselves in. And on this occasion, Queen Samavati gave a brief Dhamma teaching that it would not be an easy matter, even with the knowledge of a Buddha, to determine exactly the number of times that our bodies have thus been burnt by fire as we have passed from birth to birth in the beginningless round of existence. Therefore, be heedful. And Queen Samavati and her retinue indeed were heedful, and they were all able to realize various levels of enlightenment according to their internal development. And for Queen Samavati, she was able to realize once returner or even non-returner on this occasion as well, because they could see the danger of death and fire was coming for them, and so they were able to let go of worry for their bodies and realize that they must die at this time. So they're able to contemplate and raise the quality of their minds. And we can ask, what was the karma, what was the action that Queen Samavati and her maidservants did in the past in order to be burnt to death in this way? So in a past life, Queen Samavati was a queen at another time, and she and her, in the same group of maidservants, they all went to bathe in a river. And the water was cold, and so Queen Samavati felt cold and asked her maidservants to light a fire and to burn some bushes for heat. And in those very bushes, they did not realize that there was a Pacceka Buddha, an independent Buddha, sitting in meditation, sitting in the attainment of cessation, a very deep state of samadhi in that very spot. So after the fire was lit and had been burnt, the queen was shocked to see that the Pacceka Buddha was sitting there, and she was worried about this, that people would find fault with her, especially because the Pacceka Buddha was the teacher of the king at that time. So the queen decided to attempt to kill the Pacceka Buddha and burn him completely to death. So they attempted to do this and tried to burn him to death. And in this way and this was a wrongdoing. This is where they committed wrong. So the result of this karma, and the Pacceka Buddha did not die from this due to his attainment of deep samadhi. And then after this lifetime, due to the karma of attempting to burn and kill the Pacceka Buddha, the queen and her retinue were born into a state of hell, of great torture. And in her life as Queen Samavati, she still had karmic results from this action that still had to ripen. And though her body could be burnt and killed, her heart and the heart of her maidservants could not be burned, were not burnable. And she and her maidservants all got reborn as heavenly beings, and later on, inevitably destined, guaranteed to realize full enlightenment. And Queen Samavati had such great metta that we can see, even when King Udena attempted to kill her, that the arrow was not able to harm her. So for ourselves, we practice to develop loving kindness, and our minds can become cool and at ease, free from wishes of harm, free from ill will, and free from anger. And this anger, this dosa, this aversion, is something that grabs hold of the mind. So one must practice in order to overcome it. Practice having loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. One practices to build goodness and to rejoice in the goodness of those around oneself, which we call practicing to anumodana each other. So we can rejoice in each other's goodness, for instance, the goodness that we do through meditation practice, through mental cultivation. So one practices to do goodness, and in the beginning there is kilesa, there is defilement there, and the quality of samadhi and contemplation are not strong enough in order to let go of these kilesas. And there's a sense of self and a sense of conceit there. And this is natural. In the beginning, one uses the sense of self in the beginning of the path. However, later one must put down this same sense of self. And one practices not to be strict and hard with others, or not to be hard on others, but to be hard on oneself. To practice and have oneself practice generosity, morality, and concentration, and to, for instance, sit for a long period of time or walk for a long period of time, and to work with the feelings of pain that can come up in the body, and to fight with oneself in this way. And this is a skillful means to use virya, use effort, and to be intent. And this is how the great teachers, the Kruba Ajahns, have taught using this way of practice. And there's a story of Luang Pu Cha teaching one monk who wanted to come stay at Wat Nong Papong, Luang Pu Cha's monastery. And Luang Pu Cha took a candle and brought it up to the face of this monk, and to look at the personality type and look at the character of this monk. And Luang Pu Cha said to this monk, he said, "Oh, so this face wants to be in Wat Nong Papong, huh?" And this monk was very taken aback by Luang Pu Cha's statement, because Luang Pu Cha was insulting, was looking down on this monk and asking, "Oh, is this monk really capable of making it here? Can he really survive here?" And later on, this same monk, and this basically came true, what Luang Pu Cha said, like this monk thought that he wanted to disrobe and didn't see that he could continue to live as a monk, and thought it would be better to be a layperson. And at this time, the teaching of Luang Pu Cha entered into his mind firmly, and he remembered Luang Pu Cha saying, "Oh, so this face wants to be in Wat Nong Papong, huh?" And really felt like Luang Pu Cha was saying that he couldn't survive at Wat Nong Papong. So this monk felt that, "Oh, I really want to survive. I really want to make it. I really want to be able to do this." And this monk was able to achieve this, and he is still a monk up until the present day. And he was able to keep on being a monk because of this very teaching, because Luang Pu Cha insulted and looked down on him from the very beginning. And this is a special teaching method of what we call in Thai the Mother-Father Great Teacher, the Mother-Father Kruba Ajahn. So for ourselves, we practice to cut off that which is unwholesome in our hearts, and to cultivate that which is wholesome. We practice chanting, sitting in meditation, and if one feels in pain or discomfort, then one continues to practice cultivating the mind, practicing patient endurance, and doing the meditation practice. And this is building value, building something that's very important and useful for oneself. So today is the Upasika day. It's the day of virtue. It's a day to observe the 5 or the 8 precepts. So may you be firm in heedfulness in this life, seeing that we are born just temporarily into this world. We come and then we go. So may you build goodness. May you build a store of goodness that you may put aside as a fund of a wealth of goodness for oneself. May you grow in Dhamma. May you grow in blessings.